So, shifting gears, now we are going to talk about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. It's been out in theaters for a few weeks. We didn't get to do a timely review of it because of holidays. We were all scattered to the wind, but we're back. I remember 80% of this movie. Roughly 80%.
I know what you mean.
That's why I'm hoping you remember more than that.
I probably do, but when I think back to the movie, there were whole segments that I'm like, how does this connect to the...
You see, so like before you showed up, Kelly and I were talking about that, and I was asking, I was like, because I was actually impressed with how much that I could remember and string together. Yeah. But there is a portion of the movie where I'm like, wait, what?
I described it to my dad as an orgiastic amount of plot. I was like, that's the, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. This movie felt like it was a giant dick measuring contest between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. Like there was a lot of retconning of the retconning, I felt. Yeah. Like as far as not just like as far as character motivations, character development, like choices that characters had made that suddenly don't matter anymore. And like there was just a lot of that. Like I felt if anybody and so critics and fans are split on this movie. Like, you know, it's the opposite of
the problem
Last Jedi,
is with
basically.
this. It is. And the problem is, I think, is that critics, where they could review the other two movies to some degree in a bit of a bubble. Yeah. This movie is all the cards are on the table. And I think that there is an aspect, if the kind of vociferous toxicity of the fan reaction to the last movie wasn't such a part of the narrative.
Yeah.
You know, critics might have been a little easier on this movie. I think that a lot of critics felt like this movie's retreads were, you know, kind of a capitulation to the worst part of fandom, and they fucking hate that. You know what I mean? I think that just plays into it. I'm not saying that's all of it, because there's plenty to criticize in the movie.
I get that.
But I mean, I think that, you know, if...
Do you agree with that? Do you think this movie is a ruthless capitulation to...
In ways it is. I think what this movie is on some level, and I've said this before, is a bit of a failure of imagination. You know, you know, there's a lot of fucking awesome shit in this movie. As someone that likes Star Wars, there is fucking cool shit to look at.
Yeah.
You know, that Sith planet with the huge thing that's floating, the temple. Just the visual of that was fucking great.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, well, this movie gave you a lot of really fucking awesome shit to look at. I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, and to me, that's a huge part of the cinema going experience.
Yeah.
You know, it's a visual medium. What are you putting on the screen for me to look at? You know what I mean? It's not everything, but in something like Star Wars, it has such a rich visual history. You know what I mean? It's a fucking galaxy. It's literally the fabric of it's built from imagination. You know,
right.
What am I seeing on the screen? The movie had a lot of amazing stuff to look at. There was just a lot of great shit, and the special effects have really come all the way.
Right.
I don't know what was practical, what was digital. It just looked like they were fucking on planets with aliens to me. You know what I mean? Which, if you go back and watch Attack of the Clones,
we don't need to talk about the prequels
We've come a long way in that regard.
I mean, it's almost a disrespect to even compare it to that.
Yeah, I mean, and this thing is this is my least favorite of the sequel trilogy, but it's still miles beyond the prequel trilogy for me personally.
For certain. I think a lot of even Star Wars fans that really like it, I think a lot of them oddly like Revenge of the Sith more. I've read a lot of that.
Yeah,
like a lot of people have a lot of revelry
very forgiving about Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah,
it's like they only remember the last 40 minutes.
And we've said before, the last 30 minutes or so
is good. It has some good moments.
Yeah.
And that moment with Obi-Wan is really great, but
even the best
fight preceding it is comically ridiculous.
Even the best parts of that movie, like, don't compare to the worst parts of
that's the
Rise
way
of
I
Skywalker.
feel. There's a lot of kids in there, like, you know, early 20s to maybe late 20s that would completely disagree. It would be fighting words. But I mean, there's YouTube videos about how the prequels were understood masterpieces. It's like, no, they were not. If you feel like that on some level, more power to you, but I promise you, that is not what they are. That's my opinion.
So Rise of Skywalker, if we where Last Jedi left off, Luke had just sacrificed himself to thwart Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, and his goons or whatever, as the remnants of the rebellion or the resistance escaped that planet.
Yeah, 8 guys.
That was about 8 guys.
And there are some more, like, in the ancillary texts and whatnot, like Snap Wexley and some other guys are out doing shit. But, basically they lost a ton of people.
The funny thing about, like, the way this movie started, like, the crawl it was almost comical.
The dead speak.
The dead speak. The Emperor has broadcasted a message. It's like, what, was he on YouTube or something?
You're going to laugh. He was on Fortnite. That references an event that was only on Fortnite.
That happened on Fortnite.
That transmission.
Oh, Lord Almighty.
Yeah.
So I needed to play Fortnite,
I guess,
in order to really get that.
Honestly, here's the thing about. So there are major decisions that are made in some of these movies that really affect the things that happen afterwards. And when you start to look at what you didn't like, and everyone's thing is different, but when I start to look at what I didn't like about certain things, I can usually trace the things back to one major decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of the lameness of the prequels and how those stories turned out goes back to Anakin being the chosen one who was going to balance the Force. I don't know why that was needed. There's nothing about that in the original trilogy. At no point do we mention Anakin being a chosen one.
Right.
He was just a Jedi who was a good pilot, you know what I mean? And a great friend, who was murdered before,
Yeah.
So making him the chosen one, all of a sudden we have to start squaring a bunch of circles to make this all added together. And then we end up with, again, a lot of plot and to make all this stuff. In my opinion, I think that's where they ended up with midichlorians.
So what was the mistake for
Palpatine?
Bringing Palpatine back?
I understand.
Well, you see, that's what I think is a part of the dick measuring. Is it's like, oh, you're going to kill Snoke? Well, fine, I'll just bring Palpatine back.
Well, here's the thing. I've read some Chris Terrio quotes, and it wasn't that.
Well, of course he's not going to say that.
Well, you could, I think that they felt, and JJ has said, it's like, if this is truly a 6-part story, I can't think of any story where the last part of it has a new bad guy. Palpatine is the constant bad guy through the first 6 movies. You know what I mean? And he sort of is. Certainly in New Hope, he's not.
Right.
But they mention him. They mention the Emperor dissolving the Senate and all that stuff. And they thought, well, Snoke is gone. And that's Chris Terrio said. He's like, one of the hardest things about writing the script was figuring out what to do because Snoke was dead.
Right, exactly.
And Kylo Ren, I guess, was going to be redeemed from the get-go. And it's like, well, if we redeem him, we can't have our main big bad be redeemed. And my thing is why not?
Why not? Why can't you have them? That's like...
They set Kylo Ren up to be the big bad. That would be a new story.
Yeah.
It's him. It's Rey's final confrontation against the head of the First Order, the supreme evil. How does she deal?
The big bad.
Yeah. Maybe she turns him. But how does that happen? I just think that they felt like bringing back Palpatine gives us that extra level of big bad guy, so we have the familiar.
Well, it's a lot like, and we talked about it in the Mandalorian discussion. You mentioned the expanded universe stuff where Luke was so powerful they just had to come up with bigger and bigger things, and this movie suffered from that, I think, because not only it wasn't just
it certainly did in some other ways, but continue.
It wasn't just that they brought back the Emperor. It was like they brought him back in a way that was like, how is this guy already not like the god of this of the entire universe? He's got like a jar of Snokes, and he's got like he's connected to this incredibly powerful, and he's got like 10 billion ships.
As much as I loved that scene where that fucking thing comes out of the ice.
Yeah.
That was in the trailers, and that's one of the coolest visuals in Star Wars.
And this movie is full of awesome visuals.
And that's the thing. It's just, I'm going to see it. I've only seen it once. I'm going to see it multiple times just to see that shit on the big screen because there's so much to see. But, man, what is up with the blowing up of planets? Like why
just do it willy-nilly.
Why do they feel? I would love to talk to Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy because they're all great professional filmmakers. I'm not like It's not about that. They made choices based on a series of metrics that they weighed and made these.
I think it's because it's an iconic moment from the very first one.
So you think it's they keep playing. A planet-killing weapon is in the DNA of Star Wars.
It's in the DNA of Star Wars.
Okay.
2,
I disagree, but I can see how they would feel that way.
2, I think that it's a level of raising the stakes that only Star Wars can do that really most other big budget action movies can't. Like,
I would say that's the problem with all big budget action movies in the modern era. The stakes are comically high.
Destruction porn, right? Like you just, if it's not like a city where skyscrapers are towering, falling over on one another, or like the earth is being ripped open by a volcano or whatever,
or a cube's got to be put in the chest of a thing to stop the end of the world.
Exactly. Well, in Star Wars, it's fucking blowing up a planet.
I mean,
so in the first one, you blew up Alderaan, and then in Force Awakens, you blow up an entire star system. Like, just
and the thing
like
was, I wanted to give The Force Awakens that. You know what I mean? People were like, that was just a retread of New Hope. It's like...
I don't even care if it's a retread of New Hope. What bothered me about it was like, wait, I don't know shit about those planets. What is this threat? Like, how did they just destroy an entire star system willy-nilly? Like, why aren't they the gods of this universe?
That was their initial launch. They were working on that.
That's a fucking hell of an initial launch.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
But the other thing is that there are a lot of planets in the Star Wars universe.
Sure.
A lot. What's one planet to destroy, really? I mean, you just went down to that planet to meet the bounty hunter chick or whoever
Zori
she
Bliss.
was. Yeah. So like there wasn't a real attachment to it. It's almost kind of like, Game of Thrones whenever a character has a really good character building episode, we knew they were going to die that next episode. No, it's like that. It's like if you go down to a planet and there's a moment on that planet, that planet's done for.
Well, the thing is like, I just don't understand why we needed that. Why did the
just to
movie
show off
that?
the fact that the Star Destroyer has a Death Star cannon on it.
Yeah, I know, but again,
that's the thing because then when you get to the end and it's like, oh, they have millions of these ships.
Yeah, I mean, this is truly going to be the end of the, and that's why everyone shows up. It's just kind of like, the thing is that, that first sequence with Kylo Ren and the Sith Wayfinder,
the holocron or whatever,
that was needed to be a movie into itself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And the problem is it's just like there's that moment on the planet where it's Palpatine. It's been Palpatine all along, planning behind the shadows, always the puppet master, and they're all just like, yep, okay. It was almost like that scene from Austin Powers where he turns to the camera and he's like, you guys don't worry about this too much. Don't think about this too much. It's almost just like, hey, you guys it's Palpatine, okay?
Okay, wait, okay, okay, so real quick, I'm going to try to just thread the needle on this story because I need to see if you know the parts that I can't remember.
Okay.
So, and I was just going through this with Kelly, so I'm going to try to do this super, super fast. So it starts off with Kylo Ren. He's on Mustafar. He's killing a bunch of dudes.
They heard the thing from Palpatine.
They heard the broadcast.
He decides, I'm the most badass guy in the universe.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be challenged.
Set out to kill Palpatine.
Yeah. So he gets that holocron or whatever, the Sith thing.
Wayfinder.
The Wayfinder. And he goes to the planet where the Emperor is. The Emperor, basically talks some shit to him and makes him feel like he needs to be his subordinate. Like, yeah, you could be my Vader and whatnot. So Kylo decides, okay, whatever. So he puts his mask back together. Comical. But he goes off and, he's now going to be the new Vader. So then it's Poe and Finn, and they get what do they get? They get some intelligence.
Okay, there's a spy on a planet.
There's a spy on a planet
telling them what the deal is.
Was it ever specified what the information was?
Maybe that it's Palpatine that's back. Palpatine's back. Maybe that was
because they end up going back to the planet where the Resistance is and Rey's training and all of that. And that was, by the way, a big ad for Jedi Fallen Order because the way that she moved through the forest was exactly like how that game looks. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were just trying to purposely make that look like that game. But
It was moving so fast at that point.
There was
I just missed the atmosphere.
Well,
I meant
I've already
moments,
the brief amount that I've explained, I've said a lot,
Oh
and
my
that was
God.
only like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like Chris Terrio talked about how he wished they would have let him split it into 2 movies and all this kind of stuff. I just think they needed to simplify. If they had let's just throw it all out the window for a second. Let's look at the end of Last Jedi. Let's tell a movie about Rey figuring her shit out.
Because in this, again, I feel like this is part of the dick measuring. They wanted to, like, J.J. Abrams wanted to finish the story he started with Force Awakens. But in order to do that, he had to work around what The Last Jedi did. So a lot of the movie was just trying to get it into a state where he could end the movie the way he wanted in the best possible way without really paying much attention to The Last Jedi. Like, the only thing from The Last Jedi that I think was acknowledged was that Luke was dead. You know, like, there wasn't really any real consequence for the development of characters or the story from The Last Jedi that carried over into The Force Awakens, or that carried over to The Rise of Skywalker. Anything that did was like retcon. So there's no big baddie in Snoke, but it's just Palpatine. Like, Kylo Ren tried to get rid of his identity. That was symbolic by smashing his helmet. Oh, but he just puts it back together, you know?
Yeah, puts it back together and you know, I always thought the helmet was cool.
It was
but I
cool.
understand why it like to me, you just take what's there. You know, you take what it's not like someone forced them. It's not like Rian Johnson had Disney at gunpoint and made him put that movie out. They put the movie out. They should have really taken those threads forward, I think. Even if they didn't like them, they should have thought of ways to make them cool that wasn't just going back.
It's the principle of improv. It's yes and.
Yes and, exactly.
So that's what he should have done. Like, that's what both of them should have done, honestly.
I think that
it should have been yes and. They should have yes and
did
each
that.
other.
I think on some level, I think that you know, Chris Terrio just described it. It's not so much, you know, it's a conversation between the two filmmakers. It's like,
Ooh, I don't think so.
It's just I don't know where those mandates came from. If it was really, you know, I want to tell this story, or you know, it depends on, you know, what the various things you read on the internet. You know, how much of it's bullshit. It just kind of seems. It does kind of seem like it's like we're going to try and dial this back a little bit to where, you know, to the story. Like they felt they had to do all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like they had to get everything ready for this stuff to make sense. So we got, you know, so much time was spent. And the thing is like Palpatine looks cool.
Yeah.
And that place looked cool. And who are all those fucking followers? Now, I know from reading the visual dictionary or seeing it on the internet that those are the Sith Eternal. It's a cult of the fucking Sith, I guess. And it's like they are there on the planet Exegol, and they built all those Star Destroyers, and their children are the ones who are in the Star Destroyers, and they're the one that are driving them, and then also all the ones in the Stormtrooper armor, like Sith Eternal's kids or whatever. Yeah. This has been going on for a while, and I guess in Chuck Wendig's book, Aftermath, there's a whole bit about the Emperor before he dies, feeling there was a darkness in the outer region somewhere, and he was calling to him, and he was like, So they tried, on some level, it seems like they set certain aspects of this up, but to me, that's a cool, interesting story. You know what I mean?
Just the story. It's the story itself of like the Emperor feeling something dark on the outer realm, and then
it turns out there's an elaborate world full of Sith cultists that no one had heretofore during the Republic or ever even really knew about. Who, you know, there's some kind of weird Sith magic and alchemy bullshit going on, and there's all this kind of. You know, that's a whole nother movie about new shit that's interesting. It's like, that would be cool to see, you know? But the thing is that's not really the sequel to The Last Jedi.
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
And it's like, you kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to brush over that shit. We can talk about it in comics. And then we'll get to telling this story. But it just doesn't, it has an extremely...
well... I guess
I hate to use the term unearned, but it just feels.
I don't like that word.
Yeah, it just feels extremely, I guess, slipshod. It's just like, hey, we're doing this now. Hey, we're doing this now.
Yeah, it was slipshod, and I guess the question that I would ask when trying to piece the story together is, whose story is this?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have an answer. Like, it seems like it should be Rey's story. and I think for the most part it is, but there is so much that pulls away from the focus on her character where you don't get like her character was pretty much developed in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really much going on for her here up until I guess the very end when she decides to call herself Skywalker. Spoiler alert, but yeah, like I don't know. I didn't really get the sense that I was watching a movie about her.
I think the movie is actually about. I think the sequel trilogy is actually about Rey and Kylo Ren.
Well, it's supposed to. I think it was supposed to be about Rey. I feel like it started off. It was going to be about Rey. And I think the Last Jedi turned it in more into Rey and Kylo Ren.
Well, Kylo Ren gets a lot of screen time.
He gets a lot of screen time.
The movie starts with him,
and he is Han Solo's son. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to brush him off as a minor character.
No, I mean,
but what I feel like is that it was Rey's ship.
Yeah.
And, Kylo was the first captain, well, first mate, and that's kind of how it ended too, right? Like she ended up, turning him and he shows up to save the day and ends up sacrificing himself and whatnot. And like the whole denouement is all Rey. Yeah. So it is her story, but it doesn't feel like it's her story to me, not in this movie at least, because there is so much going on. Like I didn't even get to like the 12th minute of the movie, describing that before we were like, what the fuck is this? Is like they go and they find not Carl Weathers, fucking Lando. They find Lando on the Burning Man planet.
And why? Why do they find Lando there? It'd be better if it was Carl Weathers. I mean, you know what I mean? That would make more sense. It's it's like, what is Lando even doing there?
He was a spy. He was a spy for the Resistance.
Was he?
I think that's what he said, right? Kelly, do you remember that part?
I'm with you.
I had heard he was just at the festival.
He was at Firefest.
Well, I think he was definitely helping. Maybe he was.
No,
spying
I think he
in some
was.
way.
I think he said he was a spy. I think he was a spy because he was the one that told them they were trying to find an artifact to help them find where the Emperor is, and there was a
Sith
ship,
dagger.
The Sith dagger. There was a ship that somebody had crashed, and Lando knew where that ship was and all that sort of stuff. So he divulged that information. They go off, they find it, and this is the movie's first act of brazen cowardice. So I was really confused about like the spatial placements of what was happening. So they're on the ship, they're about to take off, they have the knife, and then Rey feels something. So she goes off into the desert. And then Chewbacca follows. So I didn't know where the spacing was because it looked like she was standing way out in the middle of nowhere. But then when Finn comes down, like he just walks off the ship and looks to his left and she's right there. So I was like, wait, where did Chewbacca go then? Like she's right there, but I thought she was way far away. She was far enough away to where Kylo Ren's ship comes down, she runs and she slaps it with the lightsaber and it spins off and crashes and whatnot.
Which was fucking
cool
awesome,
scene.
dude. I mean, that was fucking awesome.
And then they have their force battle, whatnot. So
holding the ship with the force,
so
it fucking awesome.
It turned out that Chewbacca was captured. He was placed on a ship, and the ship was taken off. So, she tried to force stop it. He tried to force grab it away from her, and they're just sitting there like tug-of-warring the ship, and then suddenly lightning shoots out of her fingers and explodes the ship. And, she's like, oh, fucking shit, Chewbacca. Well, she doesn't say fucking shit.
And I think that was supposed to be some kind of like echo that she was related to Palpatine.
Well, that was the first clue that she's a Palpatine.
But any Sith can use Force lightning.
It's not really a genetic thing. It's a Sith thing.
No, it's a Sith thing.
It's a Sith thing,
I mean, honestly, any Force user can use Force lightning. It's just a dark
Jedi
side
don't
power.
like doing it.
Yeah.
They should do Force fire.
No,
I know. That's Igni. But
I played KOTOR.
I know. But anyways, so I was like, holy shit, they just fucking killed Chewbacca. And I was like, man, and it's not like the bad guys killed Chewbacca, like the main person killed Chewbacca.
And I was like, that's really a major fucking bummer. But then I was like, I'm just gonna have to accept it. This is all cards are on the table here.
Well, that's the point, right? Like, because like it's not like I hate Chewbacca or anything, but it was like, that is a turn. Like we all knew that Kylo Ren was going to kill Han when they walked up to each other on that bridge.
Yeah,
we knew that was going to happen. Never would have been. Oops, shit. Sorry, smacked the mic there. never would have expected that, that Rey would accidentally force
lightning
nuke
Chewbacca
to death, So I was like, fucking shit. Like, this is on now. Like, what's going to happen here? But like a couple of scenes later, they immediately, psych, Chewbacca was fine. It was another ship. And I don't even know how that
They should have just not even done it. They should have Chewbacca not been on the ship.
Yeah, like
why try to it's just like that it felt cheap. There were a lot of he's dead. No, he's not. He's back to life.
Yeah.
In this movie. A surprising amount for a movie, you know what I mean?
Because it happened with the planet that they blew up because
Zori Bliss is still alive.
Yeah, it's like, oh no.
Bobby Frick is still alive.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Kylo Ren gets stabbed. Oh, and that part I was fine with. But
that's fine.
Yeah, but still, it counts.
Because that led somewhere.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And then she dies, and then she's back alive. Then he dies. It's like, again, honestly, the editor on a podcast was talking about how tight the production of this movie was. How they were and she's like, it affected everything. She was like, it got to the point where Kathleen Kennedy was saying, JJ really needs to be in the editing room looking at this stuff. And she's like, that's just not going to happen, And so they moved the editing room to the set, and she had like a tent right like 10 feet from the camera where they were. And so he would shoot and come in and look at it.
And then instantly start editing?
Edited on the fly as they were shooting or editing.
Why? Why was it so tight?
Because to make the they had 3 months less on this movie than they had on Force Awakens.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And to me, and this is one of the things I saw in an article somewhere. It's like,
just delayed
with the next trilogy, the guy was like, this is what 3 things that Lucasfilm should do. And I can't remember, but one of the things which I completely agree with is don't rush it.
Yeah.
Make us wait. We waited for fucking, 15 years for Force Awakens and, let's see, 83 to 99, 16 years for The Phantom Menace. We'd wait. Make the best movie possible. I mean, it was like we were talking about in a previous episode that I don't think anyone ever actually ended up seeing, but we were talking to a film editor and we were talking about the quality of animated movies, and they're just generally so fucking good. Even the kind of crappy ones or the lower budget ones are surprisingly good, like Storks. It's you go watch, it's actually a pretty good movie. And we were talking about why are these movies? When I say good, I mean they're solid, they're funny, they're and it was just like, well, it takes so long to make because of all the digital graphics and all that kind of shit. It's just that you could really, really work on the script, and if something's not working, you don't have to do reshoots or you just you get to do it. You
re-render
really, you just redo it and you just work on it until you really hone it, and it's done and it's boom, it's out there. I mean, those Toy Story movies are, there hasn't been one that's been remotely not amazing.
They're getting better every year. It seems.
And it's just like, man, take your time. We're not going to forget about Star Wars. It's just not going to happen. Not in this culture.
Right.
You know what I mean? China maybe, but not here. And it's
pivoting, what do you think about, when, and I have to pull this back to when The Force Awakens was first announced. And
I love The Force Awakens,
and I do too. It's still my favorite of this trilogy.
It is.
We talked
by a
about
good margin.
By a tremendous margin. Yeah. We talked about the reveal trailer and what the characters could mean and all that sort of stuff. And we liked the characters when they were introduced to us in The Force Awakens. How do you feel about where the characters ended by the time Rise of Skywalker's credits start rolling?
I generally like them all.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, Poe got more to do in this movie or Finn got more to do in this movie than he got to do in the last movie.
Well, he just ran around shouting Rey.
He did once or twice.
I think that's pretty much what he did. He argued with Poe, which was great. Like,
he did. He was like,
and I feel like
that's for damn sure. And I was like, that's kind of a modern colloquialism,
well, I mean,
whatever. It's.
But I felt like I felt like their characters were continuing a character development that happened in a movie that wasn't The Last Jedi. Like it started in The Force Awakens, and then there was some other movie, Poe and Finn's Crazy Space Adventure, and then it ended up their character, because when they started the movie off, they were like an old married couple basically, like they were, and there was a lot of that interplay. They were definitely teeing off of the whole Poe and Finn should be a couple sort of thing.
I just think they were teeing off the chemistry they had from The Force Awakens. They were such
exactly
good buddies.
But
they had a good chemistry together.
And I like their chemistry together. I like that dynamic. I think that Poe's character made a little bit more sense in this movie than in Last Jedi. I like what they did with him. But again, like I mentioned with Rey, like I think her character was most of her character's development was done in the last movie, and that was amazing. That was the best part of that movie.
Yeah.
Didn't really care for her that much in this movie. Kylo Ren was okay. I liked what they did with him, but
I mean, Adam Driver is such a fucking good actor.
I think
he was probably my favorite part of the movie. I think the best scene in the movie, and some people love the scene, some people fucking hate the scene, was the scene where he and Han reenact
talk to each other. Yeah,
I was like, dude.
Well, I think that was the best part of the movie, in my opinion.
It was legit, and he was so fucking good in that moment.
You know what it kind of reminded me of? It reminded me of the last scene, or I guess maybe the next to last scene in Ready Player One, when that character talks to the developer in the attic.
My absolute favorite scene in Ready Player One as well. I thought that was the best part of the entire movie and really redeemed that movie because you didn't like it. And I was like,
I didn't like it.
I was like, I was like, that moment where he comes in, he sees the kid version of himself in his own room and the guy has done it. That was great. I liked it a lot, and
that kind of and like the emotional, tie into having to communicating with the character that is dead but has left his legacy and whatnot, and trying to come to terms with that. Like I liked, well,
it's kind of Rosebud, right? I mean, it was that same thing. It's like this guy's made this elaborate world, and maybe he's uploaded his consciousness into it. They kind of like allude to that. But in the end of the day, he basically recreates his childhood bedroom and watches himself play fucking ColecoVision.
Yeah.
The essence of that. That's fucking good shit right there.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved everything about that scene, and it literally made that movie like I was like, I can't back on this movie too hard. Yes, It was fucking nuts, you know what I mean? But it had that scene in it, that was a great scene.
Like that's what I felt like that Kylo Ren and Han Solo scene was like.
What you felt was emotions.
Yes.
Coming from
I like
movie.
emotions.
Exactly. What you felt was connection.
I like emotions in movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay.
It's good movies. A good movie set. The problem with the other thing is the rest of the movie is that was such an outlier.
Yeah.
It was the only time that everything just kind of seemed to fucking chill out for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a moment where they were standing there, and the fact that they said the exact same lines, and it was some people was like, I've heard people complain, it's like he just all of a sudden he's good now, blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, you know what?
It wasn't that I mean, the whole thing was he was always struggling.
Exactly. It was always a struggle, and they talk about it. That's one of the things that actually carries through all three movies that felt like it made sense. He talks about struggling with the light in the first movie. You know what I mean? In the second movie, he doesn't shoot his mom. You know what I mean? And he can't do it. And he talks about with Snoke how killing his father was supposed to make him stronger, but it split his soul in twain or whatever. And then
he killed Snoke.
and then he kills Snoke. And at the end, Rey, he's legitimately trying to make a connection to her. That makes sense to me anyway. And the way they did it, it's whether it's like. Certain people were like, wouldn't it be great if it was actually Leia reaching out to the Force who created that image of him so he could come to the... And that's why she died.
Why does that matter?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's
How did they want to visually represent that?
No, I mean, certain people just like... To me, none of that shit matters, because it worked. And that's the thing. It emotionally worked. So how it happened or why it happened or any of that kind of does... Again, the only time that how and why really bumps people out in movies
is when things don't work.
The other shit, the feelings aren't working. You know what I mean? If the feelings aren't working, the how and why all of a sudden become glaring fucking issues. Right. You know what I mean?
Like, and that's a big part of the how people react to this movie is like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work. So there is a lot of things where it's like, how did they build all those all those Star Destroyers or whatnot? And like, all of a sudden everybody in the galaxy has a ship that can fly and shoot in this space battle or whatnot. They're riding horses on top of Star Destroyers. Why are they riding horses?
That I was cool with.
I was cool with that too.
Because it reminds me, there's a movie, I can't remember what the movie is, but it's God damn it! I wish I maybe.
You know, I will say the one thing that did bum me out. Well, not the one thing. A lot bummed me out about this movie. But one of the bigger things that bummed me out was how lame the Knights of Ren were. Because I remember in that first trailer, and it was like they showed them in the rain and the lightning, and they were all standing around looking awesome. I was like, man, the Knights of Ren, that looks cool. I wonder who these dudes are.
Is that it's kind of like Phasma. You know what I mean? It's like they want to. It's it's almost like the dictate comes down from Disney or whoever. And the thing is, I fucking love Disney. I'm not one of these people like fuck Disney, Star Wars.
Yeah.
I grew up with fucking Disney movies, and I love Disney.
I'm cool with Disney. I just wish they
awesome.
weren't a ruthless monopoly. Is all.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But just as a
creative, as an entity that creates creative movies and properties, whatnot. Nobody beats them.
I don't know where this comes from. And it might have come right out of Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams' brain, or from from Alan Horn or Bob Iger or Kathleen Kennedy. I have no idea. But it's almost like we have to check boxes.
It comes from the mythos of Star Wars. Yeah, you have to have cool characters that
people want to see stuff that look cool. And even if we have to kill them, just the fact that they're there, it's like Boba Fett was a cool character who didn't really do a lot. That's part of the DNA of Star Wars. It's like, that's part of the DNA of those movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't have to basically do this shit over and over again. I mean, a movie wherein Rey, say a year goes by, 2 years goes by, she's, being trained by Leia, whatever, that was fine,
Yeah.
And, it comes time to face off with Kylo Ren in some kind of major, and the whole movie is about dealing with Kylo Ren's First Order, because that makes a lot of sense if you're looking at the entire trilogy. The idea that, we got to bring Palpatine back because Palpatine is, the bad guy. From the thing is Vader was supposed to be in charge. He was supposed to be, the idea that Kylo Ren, his grandson, would be in charge of everything is almost like he's the realization of Vader's potential, of Vader's promise. The very thing that Vader offers to Luke, join me, we'll rule the galaxy, we'll defeat. He would have achieved. He would have achieved it. We don't need Palpatine in this movie. We don't need any of that. Let's think of some other cool story beats.
Palpatine offered a very Avengers Endgame type ending, where it was sort of like almost like a Nike commercial or something, where he was squaring off with Rey, and then it was like, I am all the Sith, and then she was like, I am all the Jedi. You hear all the voices, of the other. And it felt to me like a super, super clumsy way of trying to wrap up, like trying to pull your arms around the prequels and the main movies and the new sequels and bring them all together and be like, okay, this is how we're going to actually wrap this all up. And
I'm just not sure what the implication was. That's the thing. When I watched it, I was like, okay, I get from her point of view when she's saying I'm all the Jedi, what I think she means is they're all, the Force is with me and their wisdom is me. But with Palpatine, I'm getting the possibility that when he says I'm all the Sith,
that he's actually absorbed.
He's actually somehow absorbed. I mean, I don't really know.
Yeah, because it seemed like he was absorbing Kylo and Rey.
Yeah, and all those worshippers and stuff, and the Sith Eternal, and maybe. I've heard, because there's an episode of the Clone Wars called Mortis, which is a real famous episode of the Clone Wars, where they go into some fucking really weird Jedi Sith places.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a planet called Mortis, and
too many planets. Too many planets, man.
On the planet, there's a father and a daughter and a son, and the son is essentially like evil. He's like the dark side of the Force, and the daughter is the light side of the Force, and the father is in between. He's like the gray, and it's this constant balance. And the three of them, they're kind of like gods. I mean, they're like Force gods, And I don't know if on some level the Sith Eternal worship essentially the sun. You know what I mean? And that's what they were going with this, and they worship. And that's when he says, "I'm all the Sith." He's not even really Palpatine. He just looks like Palpatine. It's actually an embodiment of the dark side of the.
Yeah.
I don't know. None of that was in the fucking movie.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That sounds like a movie unto itself.
And a lot of this is just kind of like, it feels like it's all reliant upon knowing a bunch of shit going into the movie. Like, you have to know all about these other planets and about like the all. and you have to play Fortnite even to understand what this shit is, what the broadcast is.
There's too many crack. There's too many. As my brother said when he was describing not Force Awakens, he loved Force. It was describing Last Jedi. He said, "I felt like the Last Jedi is I'm running across a frozen lake." You know what I mean? And all the things that take me out of the movie, they're like, what? Those are like cracks in the ice, and my feet get wet. And it doesn't really matter what it was or how it added up. It was like, why are my fucking feet wet? You know what I mean? And that's kind of what happens in this movie. There's just so many things where it's just like, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's this now. Oh, yeah, it's over here.
Okay.
And we're moving so fast.
Couple quick questions, see if you can remember.
Okay.
So when Rey or Kylo Ren is on the planet that's about to be destroyed, Rey is on the ship, they have that interplay, they end up destroying the mask or whatever, and that's what he realizes, that Rey is on the ship, right?
Yeah.
Why was she on the ship? Do you remember?
Okay, let me think. She was on the ship looking for the Sith dagger. It was in or
The dagger. When did they get the dagger?
she has the dagger in that scene. She
The
gets
dagger
it.
she took from that ship that was on the desert
Exactly.
planet.
It gets confiscated. I want to say maybe Chewie has it or something, or they get the dagger somehow.
Oh, so after they fake killed Chewie,
Exactly.
they were taken prisoner.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how they ended up on that ship. How did they get? Wait, hold on a second.
Wait a minute. Didn't Zori Bliss give them a way onto the ship? There was like a pass or
Yeah,
something.
you're
She
right.
did. Yeah.
So-
That's how they ended up, and I guess they got separated when they were there. And
So they must have
did.
escaped the desert planet then to go to that other planet to because they had the dagger. The reason why they needed to go to the planet that was destroyed was because the dagger had Sith writings on it,
Yeah,
and
and they
R2 or
need-
not, C-3PO couldn't read it past his protocols.
Yeah.
So they had to hack into his brain to get to read the dagger.
And they knew someone, the
Yeah,
Babu Frick
Babu
guy,
Frick.
could do it on.
And- So, but how did they get from there to the ship?
Well, they.
Do you mean the Star Destroyer?
The Millennium Falcon gets captured. Because remember, they get on the Millennium Falcon and then they go rescue Rey with the Millennium Falcon. And there's that great scene in the hangar bay. And again, really cool. There's really cool
Wait,
set
rescue
pieces.
Rey.
Remember, she's dealing with Kylo Ren. There's all the stormtroopers, and all of a sudden they back the butt of the Millennium Falcon through the force field and turn on the engine.
I remember that.
And they
I
blow
remember
all
that.
the dudes, and Kylo Ren
I
uses
guess
the force
I'm gonna have to
save them.
rewatch this movie because I can't recall why they needed to rescue Rey. Like, how was she captured? Like, there's chunks missing.
No,
between-
they went there, but she gets separated.
She gets
That's what the deal
separated,
is.
okay.
She gets separated, and she ends up in the bay with,
Well, I
with
still
Kylo
don't
Ren
know
and a
how.
fuck ton of people.
I still don't know why they went to the ship though.
I think it was to get Chewie back.
Yeah, it was either to get Chewie back. Maybe, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it was
they were gonna try to-
because he's like, you came here for me. I was like, yeah, we came here for you, buddy. Yeah. It was to get Chewie back.
Okay.
Was it the dagger? But then they found Chewie was still alive.
I can't remember how they knew Chewie was alive.
Oh, that's right. I think
That's what it was. Yeah, this is why I said I wanted to watch the movie this past weekend before we
Yeah.
did this. 'Cause
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, this shouldn't.
There was a lot going on in this movie.
This shouldn't happen.
There was a lot going on.
I mean, you shouldn't. It shouldn't be this disjointed in our brain. It's just
No.
too much. Just too much random shit. If you're gonna have a MacGuffin, have one, not four. If you count both Sith Wayfinders, the Sith dagger, and whatever the little token that she gives to maybe that's not a MacGuffin, but it does allow them to get to the.
Yeah. That is a lot to follow.
Man.
Yeah. All right. So just trying to piece that together. So at some point they're on the ship. They get off somehow. Not sure. Can't quite remember. Doesn't really
They
matter.
get the Falcon and then they go pick up Rey and they bolt.
They bolt. Okay. So then they go to the planet with where the Death Star's crashed on it. Visually awesome. Those waves were unbelievable. One of my favorite scenes visually was just watching the waves crash on that thing.
I went to the bathroom right there. So the part where they meet Naomi Aki or the Jana Staros or whatever, and they meet their group, and then they talk to them, and then Rey's basically like, "I'm fucking out of here. I don't know. You guys do what you want." I missed some of that. So
okay.
Then I came in, and she was taking the boat, and they were just like, "Where'd she go?" Oh,
Yeah,
fuck,
that was a really cool. So and Kylo shows up. Really cool lightsaber fight on there.
Yeah.
She guts him, and then Baby Yoda's his wound. And then she takes off. And from there, oh man. So Poe, I don't know where Poe was, but Finn was with the chick on the horse.
Yeah.
Eventually, they
Poe
make
is in his fighter.
fighter. They make their way back to the Resistance base. They figure out that where Rey's going. They pull out a all hands on deck message to anyone and everyone to show up. Right. And
Rey
'cause Poe was-
steals Kylo Ren's TIE fighter.
Yeah, she steals his
and
TIE
she
fighter,
goes
and
back to Octo, which I actually kind of liked.
Yeah.
because she was so freaked out. I guess she steals it after their battle on the Death Star.
Yeah.
She goes back to Octo and she's like, "I'm just going to do exactly what Luke did." I liked that story beat because she's like, "I've got evil in me." Luke was right. You know, this is just I'm going to go here. She burns the TIE fighter. She's like, "I'm stranded here. I can't be evil and turn evil and do anything."
Yeah, she's going to try to destroy her lightsaber, and then Ghost Luke catches it.
Yeah. And that's not the way to treat a Jedi weapon, which you can say was his comment on learning his own lesson.
Yeah.
It works in a meta way too, because that was such a controversial moment,
For whatever reason.
But that was cool. That's the thing. It's like there were elements of the movie that were cool, that was cool. It felt like 20 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. You know what I mean? And it just seems like they could have okay, let's just simplify this shit. We don't need to do all this. Look at the first movie. It's like Luke goes here, the plans are there, they go there, they do this, they go there, it's over. You know what I mean?
I feel like they tried to do that. I think that's what they tried to. That's why we were planet hopping so much, because they tried to make it like, this is an adventure where the whole gang's together. Like that was the big focal point. Like we're not splitting up anymore. Like she was like, I gotta go do this. Like no, we're a family. We're doing it together. So they got together. They hopped planet to planet to planet to planet. Like I think they were trying to make this like an old-fashioned Star Wars adventure featuring a ragtag band of rebels, and I think that the convoluted nature of it comes from trying to tie together so many disparate elements of not just the sequel trilogy, but the original trilogy, and even a little bit of the prequel too. Like they were just trying to tie too much into it. If they just had left it alone and just tried to make this its own movie featuring a ragtag band of scrappy rebels bouncing from planet to planet without trying to placate all the other ends, probably would have been a little bit better. It would have been a little easier to follow, maybe.
I just think that, and this happens to be what I like from movies, but again, I said this, I think one of the best sequences in the entire sequel trilogy was the introduction of Rey. It works so well. There's no dialogue.
Well, I mean, and honestly, that's The Mandalorian.
And that's why people love The Mandalorian.
And that's why I like The Mandalorian.
The thing about Star Wars is the atmosphere. We don't, and then granted, things have to happen, but if you look at Return of the Jedi, which was the third in that season, there's all that. So they walk up there, then there's a moment where Luke shows up. There's these long kind of sequences.
Yeah.
There just wasn't a time to breathe. There wasn't a time that, the only time when we did slow down for a moment, we got some great scenes, but everything was so convoluted. The plot was convoluted, and why we're here, and extra things. Like, why did Zori's planet need to be blown up? I mean, the idea that Palpatine's
ridiculous.
Coming back is bad enough. We get it. He's back. He's evil.
No, not only is he back, but he's got all these Star Destroyers.
I don't even need to see those.
No, but you do need to see them because you got to know the threat.
It was a little bit over the top.
It was super over the top.
I just think if they had just shown, if they had just said a bunch of Star Destroyers from the original Empire were hidden. They hid these in the outer regions because they were working on bringing Palpatine back or whatever, and it wasn't just this comical amount. So there's a really great quote about writing screenplays in the modern era or doing movies from Damon Lindelof, who is now enjoying. He's now
I've talked a lot of shit about Damon Lindelof in the past.
And I always defended him.
And you always have.
I did.
You always have.
I did.
He has somehow redeemed himself in the eyes of those who aren't me, because I haven't watched Watchmen. But people have watched Watchmen, and Kelly's a huge fan, and he's telling me I need to watch it.
I'm not much of a Lindelof fan before that either, so it blew me away.
And so was people. He got a lot of love for The Leftovers, especially seasons 2 and 3.
I wasn't a fan of that, but I get that he got love for that too.
But I've read some candid interviews with him, particularly about Lost, where it makes me really feel for him and think about things in a way that I didn't think about. I mean, he basically, it's almost like a horror story.
Yeah.
He's like, we had to come up with 24 episodes a season.
Yeah.
These are hour-long episodes. We're writing as fast as we can fucking write. You know what I mean? And we just want it to stop. We're glad the show is successful, but it becomes... you're not even worried.
Albatross.
You're not even worried about the story you're trying to tell anymore. You don't even fucking know. You've got to deliver a certain amount of scripts.
And I think that's what happened with Game of Thrones too. Like because it may not have been 24 episodes, but it was 10-hour-long blockbuster motion pictures a year.
And the thing is, people don't realize is everyone would talk about movies. Most of them are mad about shit that happened in movies.
Yeah,
that's the thing that's so hilarious. People when they talk about movies, and they not critics a lot of times, but your internet, blowhard like us. They're mad because something in the movie didn't happen the way they think it should happen.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that's only one part of making a movie. You know what I mean? And it's like there's a ton of other shit that gets
it's
as much or more focus on.
It's honestly a minor miracle that any movie that's worth watching is made.
Well, there's a YouTube channel called Movies with Mikey, and he describes making a movie. He's like, getting a movie made is like hitting a bullseye with a dart from space. You know what I mean? The bullseye's on the ground and you're in space and you throw a dart at it and you hit a bullseye. And it's really tough.
So and in that regard, there's like something, an endeavor as massive as this trilogy was, like the execution of it. You could have critiques of the story and of what character motivations were and all of that. But at the end of the day, these three movies are still visually fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're fun to watch. Like, even if you don't like I didn't like The Last Jedi that much, but I rewatched it a couple weeks ago, and it was a fine movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, my
least favorite of the no, that's not. That's still true. Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite of the new sequel.
Yeah, I am going to see Rise of Skywalker a couple more times.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like I was telling someone about it. I was like, "What were you?" I was like, "Well, I was a little disappointed." He was like, "Really?" Because I've heard people say it wasn't, but I wasn't going to, And I was like, "Yeah." I hate to say that a Star Wars movie. It's still Star Wars. I'm going to see it like 2 more times in the theater. You know what I mean?
What did you think about the ending? Like when she goes to Tatooine and declares herself a Skywalker. I just feel
I was generally agnostic to it. At that point,
I feel sorry for the other Palpatines. Because, there's like a Jeff Palpatine who's a good guy. He's like the brother of her dad. And he's like, yeah, I know, man.
Our dad was an asshole, but we're not him.
Yeah, exactly, But it's like, because it's like, you're not a Skywalker. You're a Palpatine. Just own it.
That's one of the moments I really didn't like in the movie was when Kylo Ren tells her, "You're a Palpatine." It felt like a line from The Simpsons or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It really was. Because, and again, I felt like that was just a part of the dick measuring, where it's like in Last Jedi, it's like, oh, you're a nothing, you're a nobody. And it's like, you're a Palpatine. It's like, you said I was a nobody. It's like, what the fuck? I'm one of the most consequential somebodies. I'm a fucking Palpatine.
What I thought,
and also just a quick thing that just popped in my mind, I forgot about it. One of my favorite in a what the fuck was that sort of scene of this movie was when Hux turned around and was like, I'm the spy. I was like, oh my God.
I knew Hux was the spy when they gave him the gun. I was like, there's no way they get out of this. Hux is the spy. And then he shoots the two, and I was like, he's the spy.
But the funny thing is he said
sense.
The way that he
I'm
said
the spy.
He was so happy to be like, I'm the spy.
Yeah, and then he's like, I don't care if you win. I just want Kylo Ren to lose. Which that made sense too. The thing is even like a subpar Star Wars movie gives the culture so much to chew on that
I would have taken it in a completely different wild direction. Like I don't really care about Rey that much. I wanted Finn to be the Jedi, so that's where my direction would have gone. So
well, they were trying to play up the fact that Finn was going to be a Jedi. In this movie.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't really do that much with his character in this. Like he had some moments. It is what it is. The movie stands on its own. It ended decently enough for me. I was okay with how it ended, generally speaking.
In a way, I kind of think it would be weird and kind of cool, but certainly weird. I can see why they wouldn't do this, to have Kylo Ren live.
Yeah.
but go into exile on Tatooine. So the scene where she goes back to Luke's home, like farm, she either goes there with Kylo Ren and he stays there, you know what I mean? Because he's been Kylo Ren, dude. I mean, no one's going to forgive that shit. He blew up a star system, you know? If he lives, it's going to be really awkward, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the idea of him living and then being in exile, and the whole thing with the Skywalker Saga, in a way, ends right where it started with
Ben being in
basically
exile.
going back to the Moisture Farm. You know what I mean? Like Luke heard the call of adventure, went out there, did it. You know what I mean? And the Joseph Campbell thing, you know, the reintegration is always at the end, you know, of the character's journey.
They can't let a mass murderer redeem himself in any way like that, or at least live pleasurably afterwards.
Well, they did. Well, yeah, exactly. The idea though is he doesn't live pleasurably. He's in exile on Tatooine.
You know what I mean, though.
In the way Obi-Wan was in exile, in the way, you know, but he goes back to the Moisture Farm. To me, I would have found that particularly, you know what I mean, a poetic in the idea that it literally starts where it began in the reverse. He's had all the adventure. He started his life the son of Han Solo and fucking Princess Leia, and then in the final act, of the Skywalker Saga, he returns to the Moisture Farm. Yeah, you know what I mean.
He calls himself Uncle Owen.
Yeah, to live out his days where in the place that Luke was dying to get away from.
Yeah,
that would have been cool in its own way. I can totally see why they didn't do that.
Should have done it. Anyways, so last thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways.
I'm going to say thumbs sideways.
Thumbs sideways.
Because it's just a Herculean task. There's no way they could make, almost anybody fucking happy at this point. The movie.
I mean, I don't even think about it in the terms of making people happy. I think about it more like, what did I think of it as a movie? Like, how does it stack up with I guess what my expectations were going into it? And I really didn't have any expectations because I knew that J.J. Abrams was going to do something very different than The Last Jedi.
Well, I was disappointed because I loved Force Awakens and I thought Abrams is coming back.
Yeah.
The Force Awakens was good. He's got this.
That's true.
And
so I guess I thought that too.
Yeah.
Like Force Awakens, still my favorite. I thought it was awesome. And I guess I maybe had that expectation at least that I don't know where the story's going, but at least it's going to make sense or be coherent. And
the incoherence, I think, is the thing that disappointed me the most.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect that level of incoherence, from in this scenario. I just thought they would be able to pull it together a little better.
Yeah,
and and I don't know if it. When I heard Chris Terrio was going to be one of the writers, I thought back to the 8 or 9 minutes of Batman versus Superman that I had seen. And I remember watching that movie and going, what the fuck is going on in this movie? I thought it was about Batman versus Superman. I'm watching a fucking scientist trying to do something with his son in a lab. This guy is neither Batman or Superman.
And they are fighting.
Or the bad guy that they're...
you didn't even get to the jar of piss then.
Yeah, I was just like... And I remember thinking man, this movie is fucking convoluted. That's the thing. It's like...
This dude also wrote Justice League. Try watching that one.
Well, he wrote... Did he write... Okay, Kelly, did he write both BVS and Justice League?
From what I remember, yes. I can click on his name right now. Give me one second.
He wrote BVS and Justice League.
He wrote Argo.
Argo
was good.
He won an award for Argo, didn't he?
No.
So that's probably what boosted him up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I don't know what his first two movies are. He wrote Book of King or Heights from the 2000s, but yeah, then he wrote Argo, BVS, Justice League, and now Skywalker.
And, I've heard him say that, and I've heard that, BVS and Justice League were both heavily tooled with by the people at Warner Brothers. So you
Warner
really
Brothers
can't,
is notorious for
you
that.
really can't blame him for that. You know what I mean? But I will say that the part of, and this could be complete coincidence, but the part of BVS that I watched, I thought to myself, holy shit, this is fucking convoluted. What? This is a really convoluted movie. And then when I watched Rise of Skywalker, I was like, holy shit, is this convoluted?
Is really convoluted. Well, you know what? Justice League, pretty convoluted. So
yeah, I'm trying to think, I think a lot of times the best movies, the stakes are not super high.
Low,
you know what I mean?
Like high stakes for the character, just low stakes in general.
Yeah,
though.
exactly. And when I was talking about David Linhoff earlier, what I was trying to get to is he talks about how making movies these days, the stakes, it's like the dictate from the studios or whatever is the idea. The stakes have to be the fucking universe has to be in the balance.
Yeah.
And they were talking about Prometheus, and I think they were making
God,
the
I forgot
idea
about that one.
of how Prometheus. It wasn't just about them going to explore this shit and getting into trouble or whatever. All of a sudden, these guys were going to go back to Earth and blow up Earth. You know what I mean? Because the stakes have to be we've got to stop them,
Yeah.
And then he talks about, and they're like, well, could you make a high stakes blockbuster
what?
out of the story of John Henry?
We actually talked a lot about Prometheus. We have an episode. We haven't uploaded it. I need to upload. I'll upload the Prometheus as a retro episode.
But he talks about the story of John Henry. They're like, as an example, if you were going to do an adaptation of John Henry, how would you raise the stakes? And within seconds, he was like, well, you could blah, 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 blah. Well, I remember when he ticked it off, and I was like, yeah, that sounds exactly like a movie that you would see.
I think they're making a John Henry movie. I think that's actually a thing.
Well, this was an example, but in the example...
I think he sold someone on that example.
In the example, he was able to kick out super high, ridiculously high stakes and all this other shit. I can't remember what his beats were that he came up with out of nowhere, but I remember thinking like, wow, this guy, there's a reason these guys get paid to do this, and also how the idea of like just mega ultra high stakes is kind of one of the things I don't like about a lot of superhero movies and a lot of, I don't know, man.
I'm with you. I'm right there with you.
I just think that like the stakes, the level of stakes, the amount of narrative energy, of narrative gravity that you have to give to super high stakes begins to suck the life out of your characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The higher the stakes, the more time you spend on explaining to us how every Star Destroyer has a fucking, planet killer weapon.
Well,
the
and
less
the
time
thing
we get
is-
to spend trying to figure out what's going on with our characters.
High stakes. The stakes should only be high for the characters. You don't have to have high stakes for the world they live in. It just has to be high stakes for the characters. And if the characters are well developed, well written, and people like those characters, then the stakes that are high for them are enough.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Write better characters, people, then develop those characters.
It's like Jojo Rabbit, you know what I mean? Have you seen that yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, well,
It's on my
can't talk-
list.
I can't talk about it.
Don't
But,
spoil.
yeah, I won't spoil.
All right. Well,
So Thumb Sideways.
Thumb Sideways.
I would say that everyone worked really hard in this movie. And if you're even remotely interested in Star Wars, you have to see it and see it in the theaters because it is a spectacle and it is awesome to look at and awesome to listen to. The music is fucking awesome. I mean, you got all those themes and it's just fucking, all that shit is top notch.
Yeah.
It's just the plot and what happens and, the way some of the, I don't know. It was disappointing, but definitely
still worth watching if you're a Star Wars fan. All right.
Even if you're not. I mean, especially if you're not, honestly.
But especially if you are.
Yeah. I mean, either way, go see it.
All right. So we're going to come back, hopefully within a few days from now. We're going to talk about season 1 of The Witcher. 'Cause we've got a lot of stuff to talk about on that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be interesting because the season 1 is actually based on the books. I read the books. I read the books quite a while ago, and played the games extensively, all 3 of them. You've played Witcher 3.
I've played Witcher 3.
You haven't read the books.
No.
Kelly has neither played the game or read the books. So we have all 3 here. We have
So one of us knew what was going on.
one of us knew
One of us
right from the start.
Didn't really, and one of us was completely lost.
in the woods. We'll talk about that next time. Thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, share the link, all that crap. See you next time, everybody.
Bye.